you go to teamgpt.com, we do online coaching. Part of that is trying to figure out what coach is best for you. For me, it's Ryan.
Cool, dude. Thanks.
Cool. But as coaches on the website, check it out. What sort of influences do you have in your coaching styles, and what do you think makes a coach good?
Break it down. You want to break it down as far as like coaching on meet day, and then coaching programming, training.
I mean, 90% of the time you're training, so I'm assuming you want a coach that can do that.
Right.
Right? Because there are meet day coaches that are just really good, but they're not there for you when you're having a bad day at the gym.
True.
Having that support system, I think, is a good quality to have generally in a person.
Right.
But does that same thought process go for a coach? Just like someone who's like, you can do it, versus on other days, like, hey, like, you need to back up a little bit. Like, you're pushing way too hard. Right? Most people would be like, oh, you're not doing well. Don't worry. Just keep your chin up. Keep going. I think a good coach would be all like, what's the issue? Are you having pain anywhere? Or like, what's off? Let's address that and then move forward.
Well, a good coach, so you could say a good coach would know how to communicate in general.
Yeah.
And a good coach would be able to know how to communicate with different athletes.
I coach both of these guys.
Yeah. That's
hopefully what they're saying is about me.
it's terrible.
Go ahead.
And if you like what you're saying, visit TeamGPT.
That's like 3 ads in like 10
I'm
seconds.
just saying, dude, I'm about to get
I know,
paid.
right?
No,
Yeah.
If you want to keep, because
No, I just say all the time.
I could probably spit out a lot of this stuff, and I'm not sure where it's all going to go.
Spitting
I think to be a good coach, there's a lot, man. There's a lot involved here. I always think about it with me in a way like I want to try to get you to do what I want you to do in a way that you feel like it's what you want to do.
Okay.
So it's really what I want, but making it feel like that's what you came to me for. Like,
so the best coaches are very manipulative.
Yes.
It's basically the bottom line.
So a lot of people, especially with I think in weight training in general, like you'll see people that they do what they enjoy to do. So someone who's a great bencher, they bench all the time because that's what they're good at. They keep doing it. Where they need the coach to be like, hey, your deadlift is not good. You need to work on your deadlift. And if you're just going to keep focusing on the bench, you're going to hit a wall and your total's going to take a big hit, and you're not going to have that because you're not focusing on what you actually need. So I said, I think my goal is to give you what you need in a way that you think it's like what you want, so you're enjoying the training, but you're improving, because like training is a very difficult thing. Like no one does this because it just feels great. Like this, there's a lot of easier things to do than coming to the gym and lifting a ton of weight. So I think that's part of it, is like I said, getting you to feel like this is what I want to do, even though it's really like what you need.
Yeah.
I think you said like communication, like getting everything across in a way that makes sense to the person. I coach different lifters, and you're getting this now too, like in different ways. Yeah. We talk about like if you go, we'll use game day as an example here of like we have a couple lifters that want to get smacked and run out there like a raging bull and lift, and some want to hit nose torque, and some want to just listen to music and be in their own head, and some of them want to be dancing in the back room. Some of them want to have funny music. Some of them want to have rage music. Some of them.
The term rage music is funny to me.
It's just
It's just a guy yelling.
Just building
no
rage.
music. It's just.
Some people are using music in a way to, hi Soph, to bring up their sympathetic nervous system, their parasympathetic nervous system based on what they're doing.
Yeah.
But knowing how to coach the person in that situation. I remember years ago in a meet, one of our guys smacked one of our other guys on the back because that's what he likes. He likes to get hit before, and the guy turned around, and he's like, I'm like, no, get away. Like that's not his thing. Like, and that could have a backfiring on the meet. Or we have another lifter that wanted to get pumped up one time, and she's like, I got to get mad. And we found out she's not a good lifter when she's mad. She's good when she's happy and like relaxed. So knowing how each person's personality and their mindset, and I think that's what a lot of people miss, because they think about the numbers, and actually being able to work with the person's probably the more important part. I'm just going to keep rattling so you guys can jump in at some point. Coaching, willing to try things. We just came back from Ronettes
like yesterday,
a month ago, or yesterday. I don't even know at this point.
Mentally yesterday.
Mentally, I'm sorry.
I have my own philosophy in coaching that I use for powerlifting that right now I tweak pretty regularly, and we're trying some new stuff again. And because I don't think you can do the same thing over and over and keep getting the results. So I think you always need to change things. So I'm trying some new things. But also, to be a good coach, you have to know that when it doesn't work, you have to change it.
Yeah.
And I've done that a few times where I'm like, whoop, that failed. And like, well, at least we know it doesn't work. Let's not do that again, and then try something new.
It's also subjective to each athlete you train, right? Like sometimes people find something works with them very well, but doesn't work for other people.
Right. Most times, most things will work for everyone. But yeah, every once in a while, you'll try something and it just won't work at all for someone, and then someone else will have so much success with it they'll think it's the best thing, and then everyone wants to try it, and maybe that's just what they needed at that time. So trying to learn more stuff, either just from going to seminars and reading more and talking to lifters, and from getting under the bar themselves and just feeling out what works for you. Because we had one lifter that everyone kept saying chest up in their squat, because he was getting a little farther forward, and I said, like, drive your back into the bar, and he goes, oh, that makes total sense. And it fixed like that. It was just one cue that it was the same cue, just worded differently, and it just happened to work for him. So having different options, having a game plan, but being able to change on the fly if needed. I'm going to use you as the example the other day. Like, nice. We used this in the other podcast too, but like, you were supposed to be hitting doubles, and you doubled more than your old single PR.
Yeah.
So I said, we're going off program tonight, and you ended up hitting 3 PRs in one night.
Yes.
In a 23-pound bench PR. So like, 5 years ago, I would not have let that happen. I would have been like, nope, the plan's doubles. You're doing doubles. Like, we're done. Now I'm like, you know what? You look good that night. Let's strike while iron's hot. Take it. Will it affect the next workout a little bit more? Probably. But like, that big bench PR was probably also a nice mental boost for you too. So it feels good to hit that. So like, why not take it if we can?
And I feel like that's also another thing that is very underrated, like in a coach, is sort of playing that mental game with your athletes, right? Like the other night when I wasn't feeling like into my squats, these are numbers I could hit regularly, but just for that reason, like I just couldn't get into the rhythm. Every time I put the bar on my back, it just fell off. And then it's just like, you know what, let's not squat today, let's move on, right? And then playing that game the next night where I had my massive PR, it's like, let's keep going, let's get your morale back up. And that's also a huge aspect of any athlete, just having the motivation and drive just to keep going. Some people like hit those plateaus, and as a coach, I feel like you need that's where you're most important, because everyone feels great when they're doing really well. But when you hit those plateaus, it's like, just kind of want to get stronger. It's like, you will get there. We just have to keep going.
It is a process.
Yeah.
And it unfortunately takes time.
And it changes with everyone.
Yeah.
It's different with everyone.
As you get stronger, it gets harder. And yeah, as you've been doing this longer, different things have to happen to keep going. But like you said with the mindset, like, I don't know a lot of people that come in with a negative mindset and then do well. You have to go in thinking you're going to do well. If you come in and think, oh man, this is really heavyweight, then yeah, it's going to feel heavy. If you come in and be like, I'm going to crush this, that doesn't mean you're going to crush it because it might just be too heavy for you, but you're probably going to have a better night than if you're coming in stressed and in a negative mindset. So if I can somehow get you into a better mindset, whether that be smack you or tell a joke or change the music or something like that, I think that's big. I think another one is the willingness to say that you don't know shit.
That's like the number one thing that I'm trying to work on.
That's very.
Even though I don't know shit in general.
Like, I'm
SAT word guy, Aristotelian.
I'm
That's a word.
if you ask me a question I don't know it, I'm gonna say I don't know, but then I'm gonna go try to talk to someone who I think might know the answer. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of coaches are afraid to say I don't know. So instead they'll make up something and maybe they'll get it right, but I think you're way worse off saying, oh yeah, it's, well, it's this, than just saying, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. And I think, like I said, I think coaches are scared to say that because it's like, well, you're paying me, I have to know everything. Well, no, I don't have to know everything, but you guys have seen recently too, like I'm bringing all my books in from home and like, you can then be like, oh, Ryan's read a lot of books here. So like I have a decent idea, and some stuff like, I can go to my wife who's an athletic trainer to ask her some questions, or go to Eric who's a PT to ask him some questions, or Al who's a registered dietitian to ask him questions. Like I don't need to know everything. I've got people around me that I trust that if I don't know it, they do. And I wish more coaches were okay with being like, I don't know, but I'll find out. And I think, like I said, I think that would help a lot. I think it would make your athletes feel more at ease because you're not. I mean, people can read through the bullshit. If you're just bullshitting it, they're gonna know. But if you say I don't know, but I'll find out, and then come back to them with an answer, they're like, oh, all right, like he actually did. But if you're like, oh, it's because of this, this, and this, like, it just sounds like bullshit, and that's a problem.
And they could go down a long road of bullshit, and they can get hurt.
Yeah, it might go even
worse.
A
lot of time. But
especially with like beginner powerlifters, right, who are just starting to get into like powerlifting and stuff, where
you can drive them right the fuck out of the sport.
Yeah, you can that, and for the first couple months they're just going to be doing really well because these are movements they're training more frequently, so they're just naturally just getting stronger from it. And then just one day, like something goes wrong, and now they're out of the sport, or they're something like medically happens to them. It's really bad, and that's not cool, man. Shouldn't do that.
Cool, man.
But you mentioned before about how sometimes giving a cue a different way, right, can work. Is there ever a situation where you would just leave it be? Because it's working, right? I'm not going to tweak with it or mess with it because that's what's working for them.
I've talked about this with a few coaches. There's and I don't have a great answer, but I know like we've got a couple people that.
I mean, a good example. I mean, it's not powerlifting, but when you look at an athlete like Lonzo Ball, right? Just got drafted to the Lakers. He's a good athlete, but if you look at his shooting form, it is way out there. It's completely different.
He has great hair, though.
He does have great hair. Completely different from the traditional way a shooter should be. Yeah. You look at Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, all the other shooters out there, Klay Thompson, they all have similar shooting forms because that's how they're taught. They're ingrained into that form, but Lonzo Ball makes that awkward form work. So I don't know if that's the same thing in powerlifting.
I think it's more so. Well, I wouldn't say more so, but like it's more obvious in powerlifting because like if your mechanics, if your limb lengths are different, one motion will be evidently different.
Yeah.
Like, if whether you're.
Yeah, there's some things I think like if you're going to use the shooting example, if you're making your shots, I'm not sure I care.
Yeah.
I coached basketball for a little while. Like if the ball's going in, like pretty happy.
Yeah.
For lifting, what I was starting to say was like we've got a couple lifters that probably due to hip mobility or ankle mobility in their squat stance, you'll have one foot that's rotated out 20 degrees and another one's out 45 degrees. Do we try to make them symmetrical? Do I make them go 45 and 45 or 20 and 20? I've tried that, and a lot of times the response is this doesn't feel right. My feeling now is that if there's nothing wrong in a sense that they're going to get hurt, so if they're doing everything mechanically correct, but something weird for their body mechanics, I'm pretty much okay with it. Like if someone's rounding their back, then that we're going to try to fix. Why are they rounding? Are they not bracing correctly, or are they just weak through certain positions? We'll try to fix that. But if they're like their squat stance or their deadlift stance, like I think most people they kind of get in the position that feels the best for them.
Yeah.
I'm a very narrow stance deadlifter. It just feels right. When I go wider, like where I should be pulling from, it feels terrible. So in that regard, if you looked at me, you'd probably say move your feet out, but I know I'm stronger from the closer position and it feels better. So in that regard, I kind of let it go. I said, as long as you're not going to get hurt, as long as it's not like, oh God, that's wrong, you need to fix that. I think let it go. And again, going back to being like, I might be totally wrong here. I'm not really sure.
Well, the way that most of us train in the U program that programming, that most of us have gotten used to a system where we're doing lots of different accessory movements, lots of different, not tests, but things that you could evidently see, like if someone does walking lunges and something is evidently off in that, they might have to change. They might find out that this feels off. Maybe let me try fixing my stance and squat or something. We're doing enough stuff where you're not just doing the one movement and static in the one movement and repeating something that could be an issue that we're not picking up. I think I think a lot of people train just squat, bench, shed constantly and might not ever find out that something you drilled that feels good might not actually be the thing you need to be doing.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to put it. Like you said, we do a lot of assistance work where that might correct an asymmetrical thing that you have going on with the assistance work without directly changing the way you perform your squat, bench, or deadlift, but maybe just from your job and you've got one arm that's very dominant compared to the other one, and so that way when you're benching, your right side, you can keep that elbow tucked at where it needs to be and it doesn't flare, but your left side flares out because maybe your tricep on the left side is a little bit weaker. Just benching over and over is probably not going to fix that, but we do enough assistance work that hopefully that that can iron it out instead of just saying, oh, keep your elbows tucked. Or like I said, if we use that squat example of your feet are asymmetrical, if we're doing enough lunging and step ups and one leg RDLs and things that are opening up your hips and getting you a little bit more mobility and strength in different positions, then maybe it'll iron itself out a little bit.
It also points out things that
it might not.
Yeah. I think it points out I just had someone recently who has a ton of scapular pain, a ton of pain in their traps, and I'm and when they're deadlifting, I don't see why it's happening, and then I saw her doing tricep extensions and her shoulders are all jacked up. So you can there's more opportunities if you see your athlete moving and doing different things and something that's not just one static posture, you might be able to figure out oh, that makes sense why this is going on in your squat or your deadlift.
Yeah, because most athletes and lifters will find a way to compensate to make things end correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they might not be doing it correctly the whole way through, but they'll figure out either how to move through a certain range or use a different set of muscles to be able to do that movement, and you'll be like, oh, that looks fine. But like I said, then when you do an assistance movement or a different bar or something slightly off, it'll jump out more because we're trying to focus on something different. You'll be like, oh, there it is.
And you could be hammering something for years and building up just terrible. I benched wrong for years, I'm like, my back hurts a little bit. Like over time, like my back feels fucking terrible, and I realized that I was maybe just moving the wrong way for years, loaded, and just thought it was fine because the weight went up, but I was wrong.
But that sort of alludes to a podcast we're definitely going to do in the future when it comes to sort of the disconnect between sort of what you learn about anatomy and sort of the functional analysis of it, right? That's definitely something we are going to do when we have like a lot of experts.
When we have people that know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I actually talked about that with one of our PT students the other day. I said the difference between anatomy and functional anatomy is a world of difference. And unfortunately, you don't learn the functional anatomy.
Yeah.
No one teaches that. And you learn that, oh, this muscle does this, and then you give an exercise to fix something from happening, and nothing happens. Because that's not how the body actually works. So maybe that won't be my podcast.
I've reached out to a couple people. One person.
Okay.
I should probably reach out to more people.
We got it.
But
We'll be all right.
we got
We
time.
got one.
We got time. I had a question. Forgot what it was. So give me a second. Figure this out. What are your coaching influences? Also, on top of that, can you be too into like the literature where you sort of like know everything, and when you give it to your athletes, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Nothing's getting accomplished because like, you're just giving me everything to do.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking with that the other night, like, you know, all the stuff that you learn. My degree is in exercise science, and you learn about all this stuff in school that I'm sure helped me then, but now if I were to explain to you the Krebs cycle, you're like, I don't care.
Do it with more Krebs this time.
Like, it just,
Produce more ATP. Just do it.
it just doesn't help. So I think, you know, some athletes, I actually said to someone tonight, like, if I give you an exercise or a set and rep scheme and I can't explain why I'm giving it to you, then you should fire me, because everything should have a reason, and if it's not there, it should not be there. Don't do stuff just for the sake of it. And
I mean, I've asked you that before, and you're like, just because. So.
Fired.
Fired. On air.
Wait.
This is not on air. This is pre-recorded.
way to make me look bad right off the bat.
I'm just kidding. He's a great coach. If you want him to be a coach, go to teamgpt.com.
That's the fourth time.
There
Yeah.
you go.
But I mean, something like if, like some athletes want to know why we're doing what we're doing. So like, you know, I'll give them the program and they'll be like, oh, why am I doing this? Oh, well, you're doing this because, you know, you're weak at this movement, so we're going to build up this muscle, blah, blah, blah. And some people don't care. Some people are like, where's the program?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to do this exercise for 3 sets of 10. Leave me alone. So I think you need to have a little bit of both. Just the literature knowledge. You need to know the principles of training. So I think you need to know that, but you need to get under the bar and understand that too. I know that my training right now is garbage, but I did start training 23 years ago. So I've done it a little bit. So you need both. But I think it depends on what your athlete wants from it.
Would you suggest that coaches just starting out sort of get as much knowledge base as they can? Like, try to read as much as you can about training and possible movement patterns and get certifications, and then as you progress in the profession, whittle it down to what you are specifying in or what you need?
I would say maybe not as much as possible at the beginning. I think you need to have a basic understanding at the beginning. Like I said, you need to know some of the principles, you need to know some movement stuff, but then you need to get in and coach. And as you start coaching and seeing what works, then go out and read more to learn more and refine things and try new things. And then as you refine things and learn more and keep coaching more, then you can start whittling down. I think if you go in with too much of a classroom bias or a knowledge bias, however you want to think of it, and not enough barbell experience, like that's going to be tough. Something as simple as like going to school, like they don't teach a whole lot about, I always said, exercise science. There wasn't a ton about exercise as in weightlifting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cardiac stuff, a lot, different rehab settings. But for lifting weights, I was lucky that I had Gary Valentine teach a strength and conditioning class, and he taught us
Shout out.
a ton of lifts. But like, if I had to think about it, I'm sure we talked about the sumo deadlift, but I don't think we ever did a sumo deadlift. And I am terrible at sumo.
But you
So,
won't
but I knew
act
about
like
it.
training athletes.
Right, but I knew how to do a sumo deadlift, but like to teach, like, what gives me the right to go out and teach someone who's been doing it for years and is very good at it? Be like, oh, well, you need to do this.
Yeah.
I think a coach needs to at least experience what's going on. I don't think they have to be good. I think that's a major argument, and I know we've had that a few times. Like, if I'm better than all my athletes, then I'm a terrible coach.
Yeah.
My athlete should be better than me because I'm coaching them to get better. So if I'm the best one, then I'm a bad coach. I tell this story a lot, but baseball and basketball, I coached both for several years. Basketball took a lot more work for me. I was a much better basketball coach because I had to teach myself all the tricks to be better to keep playing. So when I was coaching, I could teach the kids the same kind of things. Baseball came very natural to me. So when kids would ask me, like, Coach, how do you do this? I'm like, I don't know, just do it. And
That's the basis. Is just do
that
it.
just do it. Like, and that was difficult. I actually had to teach myself like
Shout
how
out
to.
to Nike.
I like had to teach myself how to do some of these things because it was just a natural thing for me. Where I think one of the reasons like we're often known as like a deadlift gym is that I'm not a good deadlifter. I'm a pretty good squatter. Like it comes very natural to me, but deadlift feels terrible. So I had to learn more about it because it was so bad that I was like, how do I not suck at this? Mm-hmm. And now I only slightly suck at it. Like almost everyone here out deadlifts me, but at least I've done enough where I know what it feels like. So if someone says, "Oh, this feels it," well, oh yeah, I've done that. I've also read about it though too, so I've got some knowledge there. But so there's got to be both. But I think it's still probably going to lean more towards getting out there and coaching, and just seeing, especially because we're primarily working with powerlifters, you're going to see a lot of the same stuff over and over, so it's a little bit easier. But when we started and it was more athletes and I had athletes from different sports, you would see different issues and you can't get it all from a book. So work with the people and then hopefully find a coach that's been doing it a lot longer than you and then ask them every question.
Yeah. I would agree.
Okay.
That's what I do.
I'm talking a lot
That's
tonight.
okay.
I think there's not one approach that leads to a better result, but I think I'm someone who has been around the gym so long and been around him so long that like I've picked up stuff in my brain. If I see something done and see him coaching someone a certain way, I can register that better than if I read that in the book. So I think it's probably good to have a basis, but being able to communicate that in your own words in a way that someone will understand you is a whole different skill to have, and some people are better at one or the other. So
I said I think you need to have some principles. Like in powerlifting, you need to know like what the maximal effort method means and what repeated effort means, and submaximal and dynamic, and how do you get stronger. And I think using like Perlipin's chart to be able to have like different breakdowns and sets and reps, I think you need to know those. I think you should know those pretty much off your head. Some people ask me, I'll be like, oh, like they'll say like, what should my 6-rep max be? And I'll throw out a number pretty quickly, and they're like, how did you know that? I'm like, well, I know your max, and I know the percentage of what a 6-rep should be roughly, so it should be this. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I've read a lot of books and been around for a while. But to me, like, trainers should know those. Like, but if you don't know the exact percentage, I mean, you can, if you've been around training long enough, you can kind of figure out like, all right, like, I can hit 3-rep max at this, my max is this, it's like roughly 90%, and then kind of go from there and figure out oh, for 5 I can hit 80, 85%, and then like, oh, 6 is probably going to be like around 80%, 77.5, whatever. You can kind of figure it out without having to actually have read the book and memorize the charts. So again, like it's you need both. But the principles are the main guiding thing. Like once you have those, there's a lot of ways to use those principles to get what you want. Like when we're lifting, like, progressive overload is the principle that we're using. So like, but the method that I used to get there might not be the same as another coach, but
it's varying different. It's
but
not
we're still
it's not
progressively
that,
overloading.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just done a different way. If you're expecting someone to get stronger, but you're not progressively overloading what they're doing, they're not going to get stronger. And then that means you don't understand the principles, and you shouldn't be coaching that. But if you can show that you're following that you're following that principle, but your method's different than mine, that's fine. But you're still following it. So that's where like the science and the art of them kind of come together and figure out what works.
But also, like, I think people get hung up on, like you're saying, people get caught up in the little details of, like, as long as you are progressively overloading, like, how you get there is your choice. You should know what you're prescribing. You should know what works for the athlete. And don't be a dick when it comes to the little differerences that we might be doing different than someone else is. Because it's very small. But the people, that's like... There was a lot of innuendo there when I went like this. I think that people get hung up.
Ryan, this is a family-friendly show.
Right, totally. Family. It's fucking family.
Cut the shit.
Yeah. But I feel like people get super caught up in the little details of how they get to a certain goal. And I think that people ignore other people that might have something to offer because they're from so-and-so gym or different camp. Like, I think what also makes a good coach that might not be taught in a book is just learning to pull from other people, interpreting what they're saying in your own way and using it, and being able to use different ways and methods.
No, I think that's a really important one, that if you're only using your own stuff, I mean, you should be super confident. Like, when I write a program for you, I'm like, I'm the best. This is the best program I've ever written. It's going to work.
The next day, oh my God, it's the worst programming.
That doesn't mean that I can't talk to another coach and be like, shit, that is way better.
Yeah.
Not this year, last year's Raw Nationals, we came back and I made a big change to the programming. We were starting to do a little bit, but we made a big change of where, like, now for benching, we always squat before we bench. Always. It might only be a goblet squat or a belt squat or a front squat or high bar or whatever, but we squat every time. And we always bench before we deadlift because that's what's done at meets. And I had done it a little bit, but then Zach Cooper and I talked about it, and Zach was like, we always bench after we squat. We always deadlift after we bench. And I was like, oh, yeah, like a meet. That makes a lot of sense. And, like I used to, on deadlift day, we would deadlift first and then squat. And then we'd get to deadlift, and, like, everyone wouldn't feel great on deadlift. And now we switched it. So now on deadlift day, we squat, we bench, and then we deadlift. And I don't think we had anyone at any of our meets in a very long time that, like, has gotten to deadlift and been like, man, I'm shot. I've got nothing. They're going into deadlift confident that they've got 3 lifts. And that was a big change from Zach. And I talked to like I said, I talked to a couple of coaches like Big Mike before that we talked about, like, throwing in overhead squats and how it can teach you to squat better. And I was like, thought about it. I was like, yeah. And Zach and Mike got that from Dittmar from Norway. Like, I've never talked to Dittmar, but, like, Mike has. So we threw in overhead squats, and, like, we did see an improvement on a lot of people, their technique of squatting.
There's a million little. Like, it's not. It seems like a major change, but there's a million different factors that you can pick up people that, in the overall grand scheme of things, could make a huge impact.
Yeah.
So, like, I think we talked about it last time, but, like, when we go to, like, events where we see other coaches or see other people lifting, like, pay attention to it, absorb it, even if it's like, oh, they're from their gym, I don't give a fuck about it. Like, just see what they're doing. Like, you might have more in common, or you might
if they're
pick
doing
up
something
different.
better, I'm
Steal
stealing it. again, we'll use Dan John. Dan John made a comment. I think one of his things was like, the first time you give credit for it, the second time it's yours. Yep. So like, if I see like I said, if I see someone that's doing something better, if it's working better than what I'm doing, hell yeah, we're gonna take it, because I would not be a good coach if I wasn't doing everything I can to make you better. And if what that coach is doing is better, then stealing it is the better option. So
the moral of the story is steal fucking everything.
Everything.
What is your favorite non-fitness related book? I'm a fan of 1984.
Glory of their times.
What is that about? You don't have to tell us. Brian.
Tell us everything about it. I don't fucking know.
You seem like a hungry caterpillar kind of guy.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah. Hungry caterpillar.
Way to put him on par with my daughter. He's up there with my 2.5-year-old daughter now.
That's my go-to.